Welcome everybody to today's attributed session. And today I'm super duper excited to attribute today's session to Mark Ritson. Mark is probably one of the most respected marketing experts in the world. He's a PhD in marketing. He's a former marketing professor, a columnist at Marketing Week, Adweek, The Drum, and many more. And then he's the founder of the mini MBA in marketing as well, which have trained thousands of marketers. Mark is pretty known for cutting through the hype and challenging marketers just to go back to the fundamentals of marketing and what actually drives growth. And that's what we're going to try to talk about today. Hopefully, I'll get Mark to talk about everything from strategy to brand, performance, measurement, and just in general, what makes B2B marketing work in 26. Mark, but that was my kind of super duper quick intro of yourself. Like, how does it sound from you nowadays with this massive CV that you have behind you?
Oh, look, I don't know about massive, Stefan. Getting older. Yeah, look, I've had the 3 career paths, which is probably not what I was expecting, and they're in the wrong order. I started out as an academic. Then I kind of became a consultant and worked for a lot of blue chip businesses. And in the final, I assume it's the final part of my career, I'm more of an entrepreneur and working in, quite a lot of B2B marketing and running my own company, Mini MBA. So yeah, it's been great. No complaints, and I've got to do different things at different stages. I think probably the sequence is wrong. I think you're supposed to start out as a founder, then do consulting, then be an academic. So I'm completely the wrong way around, but it's been good. No complaints.
That's fantastic, Mark. It's very impressive when once you start drilling into all the things you've kind of worked on in your life. If we start out softly, kind of what got you into this whole like marketing sphere, or kind of what made you interested in marketing?
Look, I'm pretty unusual. I've always been interested in it. Most people have a falling into marketing story, but mine's so organic. I can't tell you when or why. I went to university in the 80s to do marketing. That's what I wanted to do. I've never wanted to be anything else. I just always loved marketing. I think it was a good combination of analytics, creative, culture, strategy, and I felt that at a young age. And it really fed me. I mean, I think one of the things that made me unusual, and not always in a good way, I became a marketing professor because I really loved marketing, and not because I necessarily wanted to be a professor. That was great, but it wasn't. Most of my colleagues, I think, if you asked them over a couple of beers, would have said I wanted to be an academic. So I became a marketing academic. I just like marketing, and that's where I ended up for a while. So yeah, always loved it, Stefan.
Yeah, and has that I'd be curious to think about like when you started in being interested in marketing, is it still the same things you're interested in today, or has the kind of topics within
No, I
marketing
think,
changed?
yeah, it's definitely changed over the years. I mean, I think we all start out most interested in communications and advertising. It's the pointy end of the spear. So I think to begin with, we all start there, or most of us do. But then it's sort of gradually I got more and more senior, I guess. And so I got more and more into the strategic side of it. And that's been a real pleasure, to work on building brand strategies for big companies, and then my own. So yeah, I think it was a very gradual journey from tactics to strategy, and it's been a really good journey.
I think I started out with liking the computer playing kind of parts of marketing as well. Like I think the first thing I started out with was like SEO. And like Google comes with some, at least back then, it came with some sort of rule book that you could follow. So if you did XYZ, then you could see these nice graphs going up, and that had a really like nice appeal to me, who's played like computer games when I was young.
Yeah, I think you're just younger than me, Stefan. All fell in love with the tactics first, right? And then gradually, some of us went deeper.
Tried to understand what's actually what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Mark, I just want to lean softly into today's topic of, I know you talk any marketing language that you're being asked, but when I say B2B marketing, like I know you've consulted a bunch of consumer luxury brands and everything like that. Like what comes to mind when I say like B2B specific marketing?
I mean, my consulting career is probably about 50-50 if I really
Okay.
look at it
Yeah.
properly. But we never talk about the B2B brands. And my business now is literally 50-50 B2B. We do a lot of enterprise work with training big client teams, I'm in the MBA, as well as recruiting B2C. When I think of B2B, I think of two things. So my main take on B2B is it doesn't matter. Yeah. So it becomes a barrier or a excuse or a constraint. And often we create this, artificial category of B2B marketing and try and make it different from B2C. And, the problem with that is, when I see B2B marketers do this all the time, when we do the mini MBA, they'll say, oh, but, does this topic apply to B2B? And I go, yes, exactly the same. And they say, but B2B is different than B2C. And I go, no, it's not. Because what happens is we create this bogeyman called B2C as if it's all the same. Yeah. So we go, oh yeah, B2C is all the same. But within B2C, you're selling insurance, ping pong balls, sex toys, vacations, banking, brake fluid, saxophones. You see what I mean? It's all completely different as well. So my first instinct is always to say to B2B marketers, it's not that different. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's not. Yeah. Everything's different, but everything's the same. Now, having said that, there's a couple of dimensions of B2B that I think do make it a little special. And I'd say the main ones are, I'd say there's three. The first one is it's much harder to get proper data. So I can survey a representative sample of consumers with a panel for 15,000 euros relatively well, if I know what I'm doing. You can't do that with chief technology officers or CEOs of hospitals. It's much harder. So the first thing is, the paucity of research is an issue for most B2B companies. The second one is you've got a buying committee at the end of the day. So you aren't selling to an individual. Now, again, in B2C, there's often a couple of decision makers, but nothing like the complexity of the buying committee we see in B2B. And finally, you gotta be good with the sales force. Wherever you work in B2B, the sales force is gonna be your main tactical execution. So I used to do this with the medical companies I worked for. I'll trade 50 points of marketing technical skill for someone who can talk to, hang out with, and get on with the sales force. Because if they don't have a connection with the sales force, the marketing person is pointless, totally pointless. And more often than not, they don't have a connection with the sales force. They end up doing sales force support, which puts them in a subsidiary role with no impact. So yeah, they'd be my three main. But I would say my biggest point about B2B is it's chimpanzees and humans. Yes, we're different, but we're 98.9% the same. You can be the humans if you want in the analogy, but people get hung on services marketing versus product marketing and big companies versus small. We're always trying to niche things. At the end of the day, if I've got a good B2B marketer and a job comes up in B2C, I'm going to recommend them. It isn't that different.
Yeah. You know what? I was telling my son, he's like 6.5, this morning, that I'm going to interview our marketing expert today. And he goes like, what's marketing? And I told him, well, it's like, imagine you have a lot of footballs and you want somebody to buy them. Then you need to get these footballs in front of people who likes football. And then he started naming his football mates from his class. And then I said, yeah, you get marketing now. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like, find the right people with the right product and you're somewhat there.
You're getting there. And I think as long as you can then, he's only 6, right? So wait till he's 7, but then say to him, and also, by the way, you could make better balls as well.
That's
once
true.
You find out what these guys want. Do you know what I mean? Like, it flows both ways. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
But
Marketing, it's weird. Marketing's an antonym, and is that the right word? I've forgotten the word for it now, but there's a unique class of words in English. It isn't antonym, something else. Maybe it is antonym. They're the opposite of themselves. Yeah. So so marketing is about persuading and targeting, but it's also about listening and understanding. And
absolutely.
the complication of you know what I mean? Like, we're selling balls. Don't get me wrong. We're selling balls, but we're also listening to consumers about what kind of balls they need and how we can make our balls better.
Yeah.
And I think that second, more subtle, humble part often gets lost in the definition.
I think 99.9 of all marketers are suffering from this inside out communication, where we invent the meaning of the words, and then perhaps you forget to loop back and actually check whether the receivers of this communication actually gets what it's about.
Yeah, or even not, or just stop with the communication and think about the product and the price, you know what I mean, and how we're distributing it, because they're far more important than the comms, right? The comms is the flashy piece, but it's really the most unimportant part of marketing, especially in B2B. Do you know what I mean? If we have proper marketers, then their contribution on price and product development is a magnitude of 10 more important to the firm than what they do with communications. Do you know what I mean?
Mark, you're already saying so many things I want to kind of drill into. Let's take what you just said now. So if marketers in B2B can help with insights to pricing, and what was the other part?
Well, the product itself.
The product, yeah. So that means that you think that marketers should care about these things in B2B.
Oh yeah, I in fact, that's the main part of their job if they knew what they were doing, which most of them don't, right? So, with the great respect to people who work in B2B and tech marketing, their general disciplinary influences and knowledge base coming out of California is shithouse, right? They've forgotten what marketing is.
Yeah.
We're 100 years old, right? We were around a long time before Google.
Someone would say around 2026 years old, maybe even.
Yeah, yeah. So it's we've got a long and really rather impressive heritage of what we do, and certainly, I can tell you, this isn't a personal point of view, this is a fact. If we can have a marketer in a B2B organization that can get involved, not be in charge of, but get involved in pricing, their value to the company is tenfold compared to what they do with comms and conversion. We've got a plague of product marketers and product managers who have no training in marketing, and that means that they don't understand what they're meant to do. I did some research recently with Ipsos. We got a representative sample of marketers, in America, in Canada, and Australia, and the UK.
Yeah.
So that these guys work in marketing, and we just gave them a simple, basic marketing test, and 60 to 70% of them failed it. So
what was the test roughly, Mark?
It was 10 multiple choice questions with questions like, do you know what a quantitative research method is? Do you know what positioning is? Do you know how to define penetration? Like, it was sub-undergraduate level. Right?
Is that released yet?
Yeah, we've been going around telling marketers that they're basically it was no surprise. I mean, Canada was the worst, but America was pretty bad. Everywhere was bad, right?
I'm gonna look that up afterwards.
Yeah, look it up. It's all there. I used Ipsos because they're independent. They're a brilliant company. They got me a representative sample, which is important in each country. They asked them a bunch of other questions about how they felt about AI and all that other shit, and I just quietly dropped in 10 questions that asked them, what do you think this means? Like, what does omnichannel mean, and media neutrality, like important concepts, right? What is excess share of voice? And what do you know? Around 7 out of 10 marketers hadn't got a clue how to pass a basic test of marketing. So, you know what I mean? And then, even better, we then looked at, well, what explains the fact that most marketers can't pass a basic test? And there's one explanatory variable, which is most of them don't have any training in marketing. The end. Most of the experts who tell you about marketing and tell you what to do, these product managers, they have no training in marketing at all. Not good enough. Just not good enough.
Yeah.
So we live in a particularly funny world in marketing, and it does come from the tech side of things. People that, what's a good example? Like, we've got these product marketers who invented, what's that? What is it? Ideal customer portrait. Have you seen that thing?
Ideal customer profile. Is that?
Yeah, ICP, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I could give you 17
I say
reasons.
it multiple times a week as well.
Yeah, so that's a ridiculously bad thing to do from a strategic, diagnostic, executional point of view.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Any basic marketer could tell you what you've just done there is stupid. Yeah. But because the people who are living in that microculture don't have any marketing, they're not hearing that anymore. And there's a real danger we lose swathes of the marketing discipline to this. Do you know what I mean? So, marketing is always changing and it's always modernizing. It's always been doing that. But what we see is a lot of these people say, oh, marketing is completely different from what it was before. And the reason they're saying that is because they have no clue about what marketing was. And they're trying to sort of ensure their ignorance and get away. Because I've had a lot of pushback. Marketing is the only discipline where when I went on LinkedIn and said, training in marketing makes you better at marketing, I got a lot of pushback. Right? No, I really did, from people with no training in marketing who consider themselves experts. And I'm not saying we all need a PhD, but what I'm saying is a decent training in pricing, in product development, in segmentation, in strategy, in marketing makes you much, much better. You know what I mean? And like, I see it firsthand, right? I see it with my own teaching. We run about 7,000-8,000 marketers a year through the mini MBA.
Holy moly. Yeah.
They're quite senior, a lot of them, and they come out the other end and they say, there's 2 bits of feedback. This has instantly made me much, much better at marketing. And why didn't I do this 15 years ago?
Yeah. I guess, like, if I think about, I'm probably one of that generation as well, Mark, where it's just been like, let's just head into like tech and let's position ourselves on the internet and try to push our company's brand in the face of people through the internet. And like, what are that kind of fundamental toolbox that you kind of see that everyone's missing nowadays? I'm very curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's first of all to put the tactics down, right? So probably the biggest problem we've got with marketers without proper training is that they're just tactical. So they think marketing is comms, which is about 6-7% of marketing, right? So they think it's comms. That's all they do. So the first lesson when you train a marketer is put your tactics down. You have no idea what you're doing. Put the spear down, right? You shouldn't even be using a spear. There's a different tactic. Yeah. But first of all, let's go all the way back to market orientation and diagnosis and what the hell is going on. And then, second of all, let's build a strategy, just a simple marketing strategy, right? Strategos is the Greek word for strategy. It means general. It means the person in the tent coming up with the plan. Yeah. Tacticos means arrangement. Tactics. It means arranging the armies for battle, right? Clearly, we don't arrange the armies until we have a plan. And yet that's how most marketers do it. They're fighting fires all day long. So for me, the framework is diagnosis, strategy, tactics, then learning, which takes us back to diagnosis, and you get a good marketer. Or you get these headless chickens running around optimizing the wrong things, using the wrong tactics, and generally doing very little good.
Yeah. I think I would love to hear more about just marketing strategy. What is the component? Is it like the 4 Ps that like I was taught?
No. So important point, Stefan. So 4 Ps are tactical, right? So the 4 Ps are the 4 horsemen of the marketing tactical apocalypse, right?
Okay.
Promotion, product, place, and price. They're the levers we pull tactically when we want to impact the market. We don't touch the 4 Ps until we have a strategy. And marketing strategy generally is answering essentially only three questions, right? Who, what, and how. Who am I targeting? What's the position? What are my objectives? If you can answer those 3 questions, with relative sort of selfishness and holism, there's no right answer there, but you've got an answer to those things that kind of lock together.
Yeah.
you will find that doing tactical execution is phenomenally easier, more successful, more lucrative, because strategy drives tactics. Yeah. So that's it really, targeting, positioning, and objectives.
So Christian, so I'm both like a CMO and a co-founder, and I've like these questions that you're asking here to me kind of are questions that the whole leadership team in a company should be answering, and not marketing in a silo, deciding that we're just gonna go this course. Is that how you perceive it? Is it like it? Should we just operate in a marketing silo, or should we get the leadership team involved?
It goes up and down, right? You'll often find, though, particularly in bigger organizations, there is a corporate strategy which is built first. Marketing strategy tends to be, how are we going to do this, right? So, for example, you might get a strategy I work for a medical company, right, where the big corporate strategies, we want a strategic imperative, we want to move more into home care. Yeah, that's one of the 2 or 3 objectives that the organization had strategically at the corporate level. At our level of marketing, it was like, right, how do we target patients for home renal care so that we can align with that corporate strategic goal, but also practically do it at profit? Do you know what I mean? So it tends to be a slightly more, it's aligned, but it tends to be a more, what's the right word? A more kind of applied set of decisions, but absolutely lined up with the corporate strategic stuff. You often find that the corporate stuff is very broad, and there's nothing wrong with that. The marketing stuff is more specific. Like when we write objectives, one sure way, Stefan, marketers will often say, well, am I a shit marketer or not? And one of the easiest ways to tell is to look at the objectives you're working from. Yeah. So if you're a decent, half well-trained marketer, you know how to write objectives, and they should either be SMART or OKRs, right? So you should write them in a particular way with a benchmark, a target, a goal, a time. That's just a discipline that every good marketer has.
Yeah.
And also, if you're pretty well-trained, MBA level, you should know that if you have more than 4 or 5 objectives, you're a total waste of time. We know from data that you don't, those objectives don't work. You have too many. You weren't choiceful. Yeah. So that's a great way. If you find a marketer that's got 4 or 5 SMART objectives, and they're grounded in the business, you've got proper market. You've got P&G, Diageo level, GE level trained marketers, and they're good.
Every time, Mark, I've settled on the next topic I want to ask you about, you drop in something more. So, but that's only great. If we change chapter a little bit, and you said the Salesforce, and here we're not talking about the CRM system, Salesforce, but I guess we're talking about the actual sales people of an organization. Why are these people so important for marketers? Oh, B2B marketers specifically, sorry.
Yeah, if you compare selling, ice cream or whiskey or something, no, it's a bad example, ice cream. For the most part, you're selling through retailers and distributors in B2C, and the emphasis falls far more to advertising and distribution management. The nature of B2B, for the most part, is 80 to 90% of your execution will happen through the Salesforce. Yeah, the accounts they visit, the way they visit them, it's the meat of B2B. You know what I mean? There is, when we talk about the long and the short of it, which is the most important concept, along with how brands grow in marketing, right? Again, something unfortunately, these product marketers have never heard of, but the long and the short of it, it's been around for 10 years. It's very important. The long of it in B2B is still corporate brand building. But the short of it, the activation is all pretty much Salesforce. Do you know what I mean? With a small s. So you have to be able to manage, work with, control the Salesforce to some degree. And you have to avoid what happens to most B2B marketers, becoming essentially sales support, brochure design team.
Yeah, terrible. I lost myself there for a minute. So what is the good examples of working with a Salesforce? And like, I guess the opposite of that is probably once you start just being an order taker for new PDF files that they want to ship to a specific client.
When I've worked it, I mean, medical's been my best experiences of it. And when you work with a decent B2B marketer, he or she engages the sales force early. So when they're building their marketing plan, they're saying to them, look, I've done the segmentation is crucial in B2B, right? With a decent segmentation, you can put all the accounts in their various boxes. You can find out where the concentrations are. You can really do magical things. If you engage the sales force at that stage to help build and populate the segmentation, you give yourself this, the start of this conversation where then the sales force are like, so what are you going to do with it? Who should we target? How should we visit? What are we doing in different places? And I think that's where I used to work for a big global medical company called Baxter. And we'd review most of their marketing plans around the world at one point. And it was always interesting. About a third of the marketers who would present their marketing plans, the sales team would come in at the back of the room and watch and support the marketing team. That's all you needed to know, that you had a decent, those guys were going to do well because they were a team. The old joke, almost like they all work for the same company, right? So yeah, marketers are never going to be in charge of the sales team. It's simply never, ever going to happen.
No.
But building a relationship where the sales force actually believes the marketers will make them more money because of targeting, because of positioning, because of tactical stuff. It happens very rarely. If you go to 100 sales teams and say, we can take the salary of all the marketing people in your company and all the money they spend on marketing, and we can give it to you as sales bonuses and discount money, would you take it? 95% of those teams would take the money.
Yeah, that's not good. Something I typically say when I'm out talking about B2B marketing as well, that there is no marketing ROI without the sales team signing the deals.
Yeah, no, this is true, right? I mean, this is the other part, right? They get too much credit. They work very hard, the sales force, but they, inevitably, especially in B2B, everyone in a senior position comes from either finance or sales. And they, as you say, they have all the attributable ROI, which of course doesn't mean they're generating the ROI. It means they're the tip of the spear, so they claim the blood, right?
Yeah.
But that's a very simplistic view, but it doesn't mean the firm isn't taking it.
Yeah, that's maybe a good plug to switch over to kind of like the B2B buying journey and like what's happening nowadays with how much of the control of the buying journey is probably moving outside the realm of the account executive, of the salesperson, where kind of information used to be guarded behind the meetings with the AEs, and nowadays it's moving outside, very clearly also driven by LLMs, where you can do a lot of research without ever talking to anybody. And just kind of before I let you go on that one, like we just released a benchmark this year where we could see of the Dreamdata customers, 81% of the actual customer journey happened before the account hit the sales pipeline.
Yeah,
So
man, that's good. What was it, 88?
81%. So it's just kind of like a count of every deal that is won. When does the deal actually move into the sales pipeline? And then it's 81% of a 272-day journey.
I'd love to see that data. Yeah, it fits. So it's a very important insight there that you're offering, Stefan. So we have a good professor of marketing called John Dawes, very smart man, and he kind of uncovered the 95-5 rule.
I've interviewed him as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, John's great, right?
Yeah.
He's slightly fucking serious, but really, really good, right? I'm the opposite, yeah, on both counts. But John's point is very strong, right? So if we take B2B, deals, sales, whatever you might have, 95% of your businesses, your customers, they're not in market right now. They've got a corporate banker they're happy with, that whoever's supplying them with logistics is supplying them for the next 3 years. They don't need it. They're not thinking about it. Everything.
They have other problems to deal with.
They have many other problems to deal with, right? Yeah. And you can have the world's best salesman and the world's best product. Doesn't matter. I mean, the simple example is men that need haircuts, right? So you can offer free haircuts on the street to 20 men. 19 of them aren't going to sit down because they don't need a haircut. They're just going to walk past. One of them is going to go, this is great, I needed a haircut, right? And that's because the ratio approximately is 95% are out of market. It doesn't mean they're not your customers. It means, to your point, they're not in the market right now for a deal. So what does it tell you? It tells you, first of all, that the 5% are where all the money is. And that's what the sales force do. Yeah. They find the prospects that are soon to be or already in the market. They target them, they persuade them, they try and win the business, right? And they bring home the business. Great. And that's great, because right now that's where the money is. And if you wanted to spend your marketing budget in B2B, you'd probably allocate about 50% of your total marketing budget on that 5%, because that's where the money is. You wouldn't spend all of it. That's what every idiot company does, because that's where the money is, right? Get the ROI. That's because they're stupid, right? But there's, you should spend quite a lot there. But the point is, don't ignore the 95%, or in your case, the 80% who are not in process, who are not in market right now. Because what you need to do with those other guys is reach all of them, generate salience, make sure your brand comes to mind first, because we know from lots of different data in B2B, and I'm going to say this slowly because it's very important your listeners remember this, 70 to 80% of the time, the brand or solution that the customer thinks of as they enter the 5% is the brand or solution they will eventually buy. Now, they'll invent a very complex, rational explanation for why they made the decision later on, but it doesn't change the fact that if we can generate salience for our brand or product prior to that sale period beginning, we will mostly get the money. And that's why you need to spend half your money on mass market, brand building, salience, non-sales activity, because salespeople aren't good at this stuff, right? You want to do much broader comms. And I don't think any of that is particularly complex. It's that most organizations are incredibly fucking stupid. Yeah. The finance guys are quite capable of valuing a business on long-term value. They just can't get their head around a simple teenage concept. You know what I mean? Which is, yeah, all right, mate, they're all buying that 5% right now, but the world isn't going to end on Tuesday. Put your other 50% into brand building to the rest of the market, and you will make significantly more money, you bozo, than just putting it all into the sales, right? I know you can't show any ROI. That doesn't mean you're not getting ROI. It just means it's difficult, right? You can't attribute all the sales. You know, I worked once for a very large sporting brand, very famous, and we did a really good bit of work where we got the right balance of brand building and performance marketing. But then it got really hard because the brand building made the performance marketing work so much better that the temptation to take money from brand building and put more of it into performance was even greater. So what happens in a B2B company is we do the right amount of branding. We do really good, mass market brand building, demand generating stuff. It just makes the sales force look better. This is the problem. You've got to be smarter than someone who's stupid to get this point. There's a balance there. And we have all the data in the world to prove it. This isn't some weird hypothesis of mine. We've been doing data on this for 25 years. Nobody can argue with it. It's just that companies are stupid and run mostly by sales guys.
And the thing is that pretty much you run like the 5% gets exhausted pretty fast because everyone is bidding right there. So at some point you have reached all these people once or twice or 11 times already. So stop spending the money there and push it to those people that are kind of not
and
buying
also,
right
Stefan, also 80% or 70% of the time, that 5% aren't going to buy from you because you didn't have salience in the first place.
Yeah,
so your
you're too late to the party.
They're knocking on the door, but you're not going to win. Do you know what I mean? And if you are, you're going to have to expend a lot of money. It's really not that hard, is it? Do you know what I mean? You could explain it to a 6-year-old and he'd pretty much get it. But there you go. To be fair to most B2B companies, their sales managers are good and their marketing people, back to my earlier point, have no formal training in marketing, no real understanding of marketing, and don't know any of this, right? So I do partially understand what's going on.
Yeah. Let's take this over to like a little conversation about kind of I'll just leave it very broad and then you can take it from there. So like numbers in marketing or budgets in marketing or economics in marketing, and how should we approach it? Like knowing what you've just said, then kind of what are the numbers and the economic conversation that that you typically would recommend people to have in a B2B company?
Well, it comes back to objectives. So if you know what you're doing, you'll be able to build some pretty decent funnels, and you'll be able to develop some pretty simple objectives. And at the end of each of those objectives, without too much effort, you can calculate what it'll be worth to achieve the objective, whether it's bottom of funnel or top of funnel. And when you add those to your marketing strategy, you've then got a budget to propose. So again, another way to spot a stupid company from a smart one is the stupid companies. I mean, I'm not making this up. People think I exaggerate. I really don't exaggerate. So here's what happens in 95% of dumb B2B companies, right? Here's how every marketing budget is calculated. A sales director sits down and works out for 2027 how much money the revenues we're going to generate. Yeah. And normally he or she does that by looking at CAGR, right? So they look at what have we done over the last 3 or 4 years? Oh, we're 10% CAGR. We did 100 million euros this year. We'll do 110 next year, right? So they calculate what they're going to make. Then they apply an advertising to sales ratio. Could be 5%, could be 3%, could be 8%. They apply the AS ratio, and that gives them a figure. Let's say it's 5%. So what have you got there? You got 5.5 million euros for your marketing budget, right? Now pause and just think about how completely fucking ridiculous that process is. Yeah, it's not fit for purpose. First, if I already know how much money I'm making next year, what is the point of marketing? We've already got the number, right? Second, where does the advertising to sales ratio come from? And the answer is, it comes from this. Have you heard of the SOMA database, Stefan? SOMA?
I have not. No.
The SOMA database is straight out of my ass. Every CFO uses this database extensively. So just pull this number out their ass, right? It's 3, it's 4, it's 5, whatever, right? And finally, why is the finance team, who know nothing about the market, nothing about the competition, nothing about the potential, why are they setting the marketing budget for the year ahead, right? So all of that is what goes wrong. Now, what should happen is we get a decent marketer, a decent bit of research, puts together a strategy with targeting, positioning, objectives, works out where they think they can generate value, working with the sales team, and then they put together a plan. And the plan, a good marketing plan doesn't end with happy days, thank you. It ends with a proposed budget. If you give me X amount of money, I'll give you Y back, right? If you do that, but again, you need a marketer that actually knows what they're doing, rather than one that is using ideal customer portraits because that's what someone taught them to do on YouTube. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what we should be doing. That's where the numbers come from. Now, I'm not saying you get that plan approved. I'm not saying that's guaranteed to work. Yeah. But that's how it should be done, basically. And in proper marketing companies, that's exactly how it's done.
Yeah, and I think like a rule of thumb I've sometimes preach as well is just like, don't question marketing more than they can explain you how they break even in the short term. Meaning that any kind of deal that is kind of won through marketing in B2B, that gives you something you can measure right now. But the seeding and all the value that marketing has created by getting in front of thousands or 10,000 or hundreds of thousands of B2B people will continue to grow, and those seeds will get harvested a year or 2 from now as well.
Yeah, that's right. And that's harder to account for, but it doesn't mean it isn't very valuable.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, last chapter, which I'm sure you're being asked about all the time as well. AI and marketing. What's happening? What is this what is this enormous machinery that helps everybody, writes a ton of crap, makes more pictures than they've ever done, make more versions of every ad? What impact does that have on our life in marketing? What are the good consequences and what are the bad consequences that you're observing?
I don't think there's many bad, right? So first of all, because of our obsession with advertising and comms, everyone's talking about how AI will work on advertising. No, but it's of no interest to anyone. Who cares, right? The big revolution of AI is not in communications, right? It's not very interesting in the first place. So the two places where B2B marketers should be interested. First of all is in synthetic data. So this is the year we got to where synthetic data is more accurate than consumer research. And that should be interesting to every single B2B marketer, because up until now, they haven't had enough data, because it's hard to get, 200 CEOs of tech firms to complete a survey. It's almost impossible.
Can you just explain
Well, not anymore.
what you mean with synthetic data? I'm sure.
So synthetic data is the complex creation using AI of consumer replicants. So there's two ways to do it. You can go on Claude and you can say, run some synthetic focus groups or do a synthetic conjoint, and it will do quite a good job. Yeah. But there are firms out there, and I would highlight Evidenza, who I work with, who exclusively work with B2B firms, the biggest ones in the world, and essentially build incredibly accurate panels of synthetic consumers. So if you're targeting Scandinavian CTOs who work in companies with more than 50 million euros of revenue, they can create an instantly representative sample, and then they can do any research you like, quant or qual, which is now more accurate than doing actual research on them.
I never thought about this use case before, Mark.
Well, you need to catch up, Stefan, because it's changed the world for most B2B companies in the States, and it's moving very, very quickly. Now, you can do it in B2C, but it's less interesting in B2C, because I can, again, for 10 grand, I can do this work.
Yeah, still do a very large survey.
Yeah, I mean, the cost and the time is a little bit more. And frankly, but there's not the value exchange. But if you look at the big B2B companies in the States, I mean, it started with Evidenza. I think it was Ernst & Young, EY were doing a big they do their big CEO survey, and their chief marketing officer, who's wonderful, had said, this synthetic data is bullshit. And so Evidenza reached out to her and said, send us your survey you've just done on your CEOs. It's cost you, $2 million and 6 months to do. I'll send you back your results tomorrow morning. And so they sent in the results based on synthetic data, and the CMO said, we need to talk to you straight away, right? So it's not just close. I think it's now more accurate, because surveys aren't a particularly accurate way of getting at what consumers think. And I think synthetics are. So that's the big revolution to begin with. And that's already been happening. If you're a B2B marketer, you need to be, embracing synthetic data. You can do anything, right? You can do unlimited conjoint pricing, survey design, segmentation, and it's accurate. And then I think the next revolution, we're not quite there yet, is within a year or two, given we have unlimited synthetic data, we'll be able to do proper AI brand and marketing planning, building the plans from the synthetic data and testing. And these plans will be far superior to anything a human marketer can do, because essentially you could build 400 marketing plans using synthetic data and test them to see which one produces the best results. So it's not a human marketer against AI. It's a human marketer against 400 different AI plans with the very best one coming forward. So I think we're going to get there pretty quick. I still think we need marketers. I still human marketers have a big role to play, but I think they need to know a lot more about marketing, and B, they need to be ironically pretty good with AI. So I think, I think the data that came from Anthropic said about 65% of all marketing work will eventually be replaceable with AI. I think that's about right. Not yet, but it's, that's the number. And so I think we'll lose 50 to 60% of the marketers in the profession. We won't need as many marketers, but the marketing we can do will be a lot better.
Yeah. That's a very interesting time to be alive at the moment professionally.
It is, right? It is. It's challenging. It's challenging, but I find it, I've enjoyed the AI stuff so far. And I think it's, Pete, the guy that Pete Weinberg runs Evidenza. He does these amazing talks for B2B clients, and he shows them all this data, and he goes, look at this and look at that. And then at the end, he goes, his closing line is always, and this is the worst that AI will ever be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's so wild.
And that's the point, right? It's already mind-boggling, and we're just getting started.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and like every company has to kind of think about it, and no one knows what's going to happen in the end.
Yeah.
What about the so AI and kind of what about the kind of over the feed or social feed overtake, the overtake of brands, the overtake of voice and tone of brands, just leaving it to AI? What impact is that having?
Yeah, I don't mind it so much. I mean, again, the standard of marketing is so poor. I mean, there was a study, remember, about a year or two ago showing how AI was better at spotting breast cancer than an oncologist looking at scans, and that was a big study at the time. But that's a proper medical professional who's really good at their job. Talking about AI replacing people that, again, 2/3 of them don't know what positioning is or what conjoint is or how to calculate penetration. You know what I mean? They're not fit for purpose. In that situation, we keep talking about, AI is, AI is going to start doing the marketing work. Well, thank Christ, because the state of it in many companies is so bad. I would
That's true.
take, a random bingo machine in many cases. So, and they deserve it. If you're practicing marketing and you have no formal training in marketing,
Yeah.
what were you expecting? You were expecting that you just sort of get the hang of it, that a couple of YouTube videos with Gary V was going to sort you out? It's a fucking 100-year-old profession. It's not that easy. You're going to get replaced by a machine, partly because you don't know what you're doing, and partly because you should for the good of the firm. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think to some degree we're asking for it. When 2/3 of marketers haven't got a formal training in marketing, I think you will use the machine in those situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we had a question just like that, so I think it covers it. How do you envision AI and agents will change the profession? Are we looking at needing fewer marketers? And it sounds
Yeah,
like exactly
yeah,
that.
2/3.
Yeah.
2/3, I think, is the anthropic number. Eventually, not yet. And you're seeing it already, Stefan. So you're seeing it with the marketers aren't moving, right? So senior marketers, the numbers are dramatically down. So senior marketers are staying put because they know if they get pushed from a job that they jump to, there's no more jobs to jump back to. And it's the T-shaped revolution. The junior marketers are the ones that will struggle because they're the ones that are instantly replaceable
Yeah,
by
exactly.
AI.
Yeah.
Their jobs are the ones. So it's already starting to happen, and it'll take, I think a 3-4 year squeeze, and we'll see those numbers decline substantially. And that's a shame, but it's going to happen.
Like 3-4 years, that's not a lot. That's very soon.
No, 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 no. But it's already happening. If you
Yeah.
look at the labor numbers in March in the United States, the number of people laid off in tech companies is as high as it's been since COVID. It's starting. It's
Yeah.
definitely starting, and it won't stop. It won't be immediate, but it's going to be. They won't be hiring as many, and they won't be replacing.
Yeah.
And it has to. It has to happen, right? I mean, it's we're all capable of doing more. Capitalism dictates we're not going to replace people we don't need to replace.
Yeah. So let's flip this into a motivational talk instead of
Yeah.
the dystopian. There's never been more opportunity to be a fantastic marketer because there's a fantastic machinery right at your hands that if
Yeah.
you learn to utilize it, you can serve it all the way to the CMO position.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true. It's a wonderful time to be in marketing. It's always difficult because there's challenges, but yeah, it's a great time to be a marketer for sure. And we're always going to be valuable because we're the ones that bring the customer into the company, and the customer pays for everything, right? That's our job. So yeah, a good marketer is still worth a fortune.
Let's end on that one, Mark. That's one to get tattooed on your skin. Mark, for those who are listening, where do you want to turn their attention? Where do you want, like, if people want to follow you, where should they go? If people want more of your education, where should they go?
Oh, look, just look me up on LinkedIn. There I am. I write a couple of columns a week, but come and look at Mini MBA in 10 weeks. I mean, I'm a former marketing professor. I taught marketing at MIT, at London Business School. I won teaching prizes, and now I offer the 10-week course online at minimba.com. And it's we train 8,000 marketers a year. and they all go out and benefit from it. And it's very nicely priced. We're big in Denmark now, you know, thanks to Pong. We have a lot of Danish marketers doing the program, a lot of Americans. We operate out of about 40 countries for the course, and you know, we're the best training in marketing in the world, according to most people. And that's what you should. If you're a marketer listening to this without training, it takes you 10 weeks and a couple of €1,000 to get trained to the highest possible level. What are you waiting for? It's, you know, it'll transform you.
You know how to pitch, Mark, and you've made
Oh,
me
mate,
feel I need to revisit.
I'm doing God's work, Stefan. I'm doing God's work, man. Yeah, no.
You've definitely
we've been going 10 years now, so I know the buttons to press, but they're good buttons, right? I mean, it's the way to do it.
You've definitely made me kind of think about whether I know my fundamentals well enough. So good job.
Yeah, well, we'd even take a man of your standing, Stefan. Remember, 15% of the class is C-suite VP level. It's not a kids class. So we'd love to have you too, man. Come on.
Wonderful.
I won't give you a discount because, as you'll find out in Module 8, we don't do discounts. You know, it's a bad thing to do, but we'd love to have you.
Fantastic, Mark. Everybody who's been listening, thank you so much for listening into this conversation. I hope you learned as much as I did. And Mark, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and give us a little marketing lecture.
Oh, look, my pleasure, Steph. Always good, mate. And have a beer, have a nice, decent Danish. I work for Carlsberg, so enjoy a nice. But it's Tuborg, isn't it, in Copenhagen? So have a Tuborg on me.
Yeah, I think it's probably even the microbreweries that's leading the way nowadays in Copenhagen.
No, shut up, man. I work for Carlsberg. No, it's not. It's definitely Tuborg that's leading the way. Don't say that. Don't say that.
They have those but Carlsberg have this like umbrella of fancy microbrewers underneath, so they can sit on top and then still like harvest the revenue out of it.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that's true.
Wonderful, Mark. Everybody, if you like this conversation, subscribe to our podcast, which is called Attribute. And if you disagree with Mark, tag him and tell him he's wrong. I'm sure he can take it.
Absolutely.